What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleashed. Of course, the panel discussion show has to have a beautiful panel, and I think we delivered today. So let's start by introducing the man who's sitting in the rotating chair today, my former colleague at Sherdog.com. A lot of former colleagues to a lot of people because he worked it everywhere before he found himself running the ship of the MMA department of The Score. He is my good friend, James Lynch. James, what's up, my man?
What's up, guys? So happy to be here. Love the show. Had to wear a really cool t-shirt today, so had to, I got to show up for one of these. This is a big deal.
This is the biggest deal in mixed martial arts media, James, besides yourself. Thank you so much for taking out the time. And, of course, we've got to introduce the two gentlemen who make this panel up every week, make half of the panel every week. So we'll start with the jack of all trades, who's mastered them all, the senior editor of Sherdog.com, Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's up, my man?
Hey, I'm just here drinking and knowing things. That's what I do.
Oh, man, that just describes us every day of the week. Now, of course, got to introduce the man who anchors the panel with all the numbers, with all the statistics, all the fun facts. He is also of Sherdog.com, Jay Petrie. Jay, how you feeling, my man?
Hey, fellas, I'm just here so I don't get fined. Now, let's give you my stat of the week because, what the heck. There's a story out from The Athletic talking about the chronicles of one Travis Fulton. So I wanted to chime in on that just with a very simple number. 320. 320. That's the number of fights recorded on Sherdog that we have for one Travis Fulton, which is more than double the next closest fighter. So 320 fights for our lovely Travis Fulton.
That is a hell of a stat right there. So now some very interesting news has broken since we last convened to do this show. Now let's start with this one. We're going to combine two topics here. Swing or miss. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson is the biggest fight in UFC history. James, I'm going to start with you.
No, I don't think it is the biggest fight in UFC history. Look, it's an awesome matchup. I'm extremely excited about it. Assuming it actually happens, I don't want to jinx anything. Let's wait till they actually step in the cage before we can even talk about this being, the biggest fight or even on that radar. But you got to look at the name value with both fighters, and I just think there have been bigger fights in the past. While this is a very important fight for the lightweight division, I just don't know if it has sort of that name value that is really going to get fans coming out the same way that it has with other big name fights in the past. I can think of, fights with George St. Pierre and Jake Shields, filling up, the Sky Dome or in Toronto, fights like that really have sort of that big name power behind it. Khabib certainly has a big following, but I just don't think it's the type of fight that's going to bring in the casual fans. When I think a big fight, best fight of all time, it's got to have that star power attached to it. And while I love this matchup, I just don't think it's up there, but I am excited for it, assuming it happens.
All right. So, Jay, Ben, do we agree with our special guest? Is this not the biggest fight in UFC history?
Well, there are two ways you can approach the idea of biggest. You can certainly approach it from a standpoint of straight drawing power, or you can approach it from a standpoint of legacy within the sport. Like, is it a big matchup in terms of the competitive resumes that the two fighters are bringing? In either case, the answer is no, but it's a different no in each case. James already laid out really well why it is not and won't be the biggest in terms of drawing power. In fact, I feel as though Nurmagomedov and Ferguson have both kind of shown us their ceiling in terms of drawing power within the last year. We've seen what it looks like when they're asked to shoulder the lion's share of the draw for a card, and the results were not terrible, but they were not McGregor-esque numbers by any stretch. In fact, it settles them comfortably into the right behind the Jon Jones types in terms of their drawing power. So won't be the biggest if McGregor really fights Cerrone, it won't even be the biggest fight of 2020. In terms of what they bring to the cage competitively, it is very close to being on paper the greatest matchup in UFC history. I mean, to see the win streaks that they are bringing to bear in probably still the best division in mixed martial arts, if not certainly one of the two best, is completely bananas. So everybody, knock on the nearest horizontal wooden surface that this actually. That's vertical, Jay.
You didn't see where I was tapping.
Yeah, because. And I don't want to know how vertical it was, Anthony. We'll just keep that to ourselves. But yes, I mean, we're already on a roll. Alrighty then.
This is great. This is great.
I'm incredibly excited for it. It will certainly be the biggest UFC fight in several years from a standpoint of my personal interest.
All right, Jay. So, do you agree with me, or are you wrong? Is Khabib and Tony like the greatest fight you can put together as far as just the pure matchup, like for the nerds, and not the biggest commercial draw?
That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I feel like this is like a check swing right here, this one, because in terms of drawing power, it just doesn't have the little sparkle on top that the UFC loves to capitalize on. But in terms of top shelf matchmaking and fights that have to happen and competitive nature and, kind of a roll of the dice to see what the heck's going to happen, who's going to get cut first, who's going to get taken down, obviously, Tony. But, these guys both of them are on 12 fight win streaks. And shout out to my buddy Nick Dwyer. Their Dwyer score is 24, which is, their combined momentum of these two fighters, they've won the last 24 fights. That's more than most of the UFC events that have ever happened in combined momentum. It's the fight. It's the fight. Now, I don't know if it'll determine the lightweight greatest of all time. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. But a top 5 spot is up for grabs for me. It has everything going for it for me to make it that fight. It's got the history between the two and their story of the little fight that couldn't. It has kind of a little fun rivalry along the way, and they are the consensus top guys in the division. Like, you couldn't say Gaethje, you couldn't say McGregor, you couldn't say Pettis or Cowboy or Poirier, name. This is the number 1 and number 2, and it's kind of almost 1A and 1B. If Khabib wins, look at the things we have to work with. He'll be 29-0. He'll tie the lightweight title defense record with 3 in a row, which is surprising. And if Tony wins, well, he'll be the first guy to ever beat Khabib. But here's one last thing to think about. If Khabib loses, he'll probably get an instant rematch, even if he's blown out, even if he gets smoked in the first round like Joanna Rose won. I think Tony is going to have to beat Khabib twice.
You know what? I never thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense. He's clearly someone who's established a very particular brand of dominance in his run. I guess when you've won that many fights, it's right. Getting dethroned isn't necessarily going to bump you right out of the title picture, even for your immediate next fight. But man, I'm really of the mind, and I think all three of you will probably be in agreement here. The constant delays of this fight have only built it up even bigger, almost to the point where I'm almost leaning toward thinking that when this does finally happen, and I should say if this does finally happen, that it won't live up to the expectations that we've put upon it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't want to see that, but I
kind of like
Wanderlei
Silva and Chuck Liddell. Remember when they ended up fighting? It just because it took so long because they're supposed to fight in Pride and everything. When it did happen, it was a great fight. But when you look back on it, it was supposed to be so much bigger than it was.
Yeah, exactly. Some of that luster taken off of it simply because our expectations have gone through the roof. And I think Chuck and Wanderlei is such a good example because that was a fantastic fight. If you take the history out of the equation, that was a great fight to watch and just enjoy with your buddies. And this is probably going to be that too. But will it be the most epic thing that's ever happened in the face of the earth? I don't know. We'll see.
Like a Fedor versus Crow Cop. I'm blaspheming here. Enjoyable fight, but you remember everything that was going into it. Fedor, the god, and Crow Cop, the head kick wizard, and all those things going into it. Oh, they were supposed to meet. Oh, the tournaments, and then it was a good fight, and Fedor surprised us, but it wasn't. Oh my god, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. So yeah, like that. I think Duffy wants to chime in too.
Well, just my thought that comes up when we talk about Liddell versus Silva and Fedor versus Crow Cop is that both of those lost a little luster because one or both guys lost a fight between when the crank started grinding that the fight needed to be made. Here, the fight's been put off a few times, but neither of these guys has lost. And if anything, they've just looked even more impressive. They've looked equally dominating or more so over better and better fighters. So the matchup is aging well. I still wish it had happened 2 years ago, but if we had to wait, at least neither of them lost, which is why it may disappoint us. Okay, I've got a trivia question or a math question for Jay that I want an answer to by the end of the show. You talked about the Dwyer score of this fight.
Yep.
Is it the highest Dwyer score in a UFC title fight since Evans versus Machida?
Well, Dwyer score calculates UFC fights, so yes. It doesn't calculate total number of wins going into it. But I think even so it would, because that 28 for Khabib.
Why are you gonna spit on cutting up Rich Franklin in Jungle Fight?
Gotta appreciate the deep dives there. So now one person that I was always saying would factor into whether or not Tony versus Khabib actually does take place is Conor McGregor. And that's a name that no matter what you can't escape. And we damn sure ain't escaping it anytime soon. We couldn't escape it over Thanksgiving because the UFC made the announcement that he will, in fact, take on Donald Cerrone in the main event of what will actually be UFC 246. And there was some speculation that was actually going to end up being a fight night on January 18th. Looks like it will be a full-fledged pay-per-view in Las Vegas with Conor McGregor headlining. Now that has been announced, what are you more excited for? Cowboy versus Conor or Tony versus Khabib?
Well, let me say something real quick. I was covering news on Thursday, on Thanksgiving Day, and the news broke about what do you say, about 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, give or take, which just so happens to be the standard dining time of families that are celebrating Thanksgiving. And so I see that the Okamoto or the whomever at the time, my memory escapes me already, broke the story. And I hear my family carving up the turkey in the other room. And so I have to stop and say, oh my God, this is a big enough story where I can't wait 2-3 hours and some sluggishness later to go at it. So I proceed to say, hold on, wait, no, I got to do this. I got this. And slug out this thing, make the entire family wait to eat Thanksgiving dinner so I can slug out this silly announcement. So carry on, gentlemen.
All right. So, and actually, Jay, you're kind of leading me into where I wanted to go with this. For just a brief detour into our personal lives, what exactly were you guys doing when you got the news that this fight was happening? So James, I know you are the consummate family man. What was going on in your household?
I actually wasn't at home. I was in Pittsburgh. I think I explained the story on my podcast for those who don't know. I went to Pittsburgh because my dad bought the wrong hockey tickets. Instead of buying tickets for the Vancouver Canucks and Pittsburgh Penguins in Vancouver, he bought them in Pittsburgh, and we couldn't get a refund on the tickets. So we ended up just flying down and seeing the event. So I was in a hotel room when this news broke, and I was actually working remotely for the score that day because I couldn't get that much time off. So nothing crazy. And also, as you guys got to know, I mean, I'm Canadian. We had our Thanksgiving in October, so we're all good.
Yeah, it's already passed. Yeah.
I just figured you'd use it as an excuse to have another day off, because that's what I would do. So Ben, what was going on in the Duffy household when you got this news?
I must not be as hardcore as Jay, because I also was in the midst of family Thanksgiving dinner. But unlike him, I did not blithely throw my family over in favor of this story. Like, my phone did buzz because one of my saved, Google alerts pinged me. But I was like, well, ain't that some shit? And I continued to carve the turkey.
I had to write the damn thing up, though.
That's the difference.
Yeah. I was, so my wife and I went to Thanksgiving at a friend's house. And they were like doing the final prep on the food and stuff. And I was actually spiking my coffee. So I just had a big thing of Canadian whiskey that I'm pouring into my coffee. And just when I started feeling the buzz, I just happened to look at my Twitter timeline. I'm like, ain't that some shit? And I took another sip. And before I know it, then that chain of tweets as I got drunker throughout the day started, and got in trouble the next day. But hey, it was totally worth it. I'm sorry, honey. Uh, so
that was a classic tweet thread.
Oh,
I will
much
link
fun.
that. I will link that in the blurb for this show when it drops on Tuesday.
Yeah, no, not my finest moment. I certainly, but I would, at least when I talked to her, I was on my best behavior. So, as far as this matchup goes, like what's obviously, we seem to be more pumped for Khabib versus Tony for obvious reasons, and we are diehards. But what's your level of excitement to see McGregor versus Cerrone? Like, where are we on our excitement scale from 1 to 10? I'll start with you on this one, Ben.
Off the charts, 10. Divorced from the relative competitive levels, which I mean we can't do, but if we were, it is the fight that more guarantees excitement. Cerrone is going to give McGregor one of two things. He's either going to oblige McGregor on the feet, which should make for a hell of a fight, or if he elects to take it to the ground, I mean, he's always been a guy with underrated reactive takedowns. He's not gonna lay on him for 15 or 25 minutes. He's gonna choke him the hell out or armbar him, which would also be an amazing thing to see. So that fight should be dynamite, and even competitively, it is right up there. The UFC will find some excuse to slot the winner of that fight into a title shot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? I want to take this conversation in a different direction, because we've seen a lot of backlash on social media in particular about this fight, and everybody seemed to be wanting the Gaethje fight. I am of the mind that the Cerrone fight makes more sense, not simply if you're trying to preserve McGregor, his star power and what Gaethje has to offer and whatnot, but McGregor is coming off of a loss. So is Donald Cerrone. Seems to make more sense for the loser to fight the loser, as opposed to the guy who's on the upward trajectory to be fighting the guy who most recently lost. James, do you agree with me, or are you wrong?
I wish I could disagree with you so this could be more entertaining, but no, I definitely agree with you. I don't get the backlash for this fight. People wanting him to fight Gaethje. You got to remember two things. Number one, like you said, Gaethje probably is at the point where he could fight the winner of Khabib and Ferguson just with his body work in the lightweight division. The other thing is Justin Gaethje is not as well known as Cowboy Cerrone. I mean, my dad knows who Cowboy Cerrone is. My dad does not know that much about Justin Gaethje, even though they fought each other last time. I mean, certainly I would think Cowboy is sort of the bigger name between the two. And here's the most important thing, and you did touch on it there. McGregor's got to be in a fight that's competitive. Right now, if we're looking at how Justin Gaethje has looked in his last couple of fights, and you look at McGregor with his layoff and the way he lost to Khabib, that's not a fight I think McGregor can win. McGregor can beat Cowboy. And if McGregor loses again, that's bad for business. I don't care who you are. McGregor's got to win fights. And part of his star power, part of his appeal is that he talks all this trash, he backs it up. That didn't happen in the last fight, but at least he could use the excuse of, he'd been out forever, whatever, and he's fighting a guy who's undefeated. Cerrone's lost before. So to me, it's like this is the fight where you get a bigger name, you get a guy who's coming off a losing streak, who's older, and to me, it just makes way more sense this way. You can't do what they did to Ronda Rousey, which is give Ronda Rousey. I always say this: she could have fought anyone else after losing to Holly Holm other than Amanda Nunes, and Ronda Rousey's probably still in the UFC. She fights Amanda Nunes, and she decides to box Amanda Nunes. Oh. 0 on that one. I kind of look at the same thing here, and that's why this fight's so interesting to me, is that McGregor really needs to win this. I mean, he could lose, and I'm sure people would still watch him fight, but a lot of his appeal is this trash talking, I'm the best, I get in your head and all that. And that needs to be on display here on January 18th. So, I'm very excited for this fight.
All right, so Jay, I'll start with you on this one, and fellas, we'll wrap this one up quick and move on to the next topic for discussion. But quick predictions: who wins this fight and how?
Oh, let's get weird. Betting odds opened for McGregor at about a 220 favorite or so, with Cowboy at about plus 190. I haven't seen the lines the last few days. I'm sure people have been putting money down. I'm going underdog. I'm going Donald Cerrone. With a submission of some kind. Obviously, it's not really secret knowledge to know that McGregor's weakness and his Achilles heel is, his neck pretty much. All of his losses are by submission. It's a very clear target for fighters. I can see Donald getting hurt. I can see him putting the pace on him and backing him up against the cage. And instead of folding like a lawn chair, I could see Cerrone grabbing hold of him, not necessarily jumping guard, but doing work and getting the fight where he needs to go. Pull him down on top of him, throw his legs up for a triangle like he did with Cowboy Oliveira, something like that to mess up Conor. I see that. I see him coming out with a win, and Cerrone, and a lot of people being very upset.
All right, James, what's your quick prediction on this one?
I like Cowboy as well, and I think the fact that this is at 170 actually benefits him, because if this set was at 155, I would almost favor Conor, because, if he touches Cerrone, we've seen Cerrone knocked out I don't know how many times at lightweight. I think the fact that Cerrone doesn't have to cut that extra weight, he's in a weight class where in my opinion, I think it's the better weight class for Cerrone at this point. We know what Cerrone needs to do. All he needs to do is get this to the ground and submit him. Conor's, like you said, Joseph Duffy, Khabib, all these other fighters have submitted McGregor. I think Cerrone's going to pull this one off, and I see it being one of those fights where Cerrone weathers the early storm, second or third round submission by Cerrone once McGregor gets tired.
All right, Ben, what's your take on this one?
That's three of us going for the underdog, and I have Cerrone in this one for all the same reasons that James and Jay have laid out. I think he's going to be the obviously and substantially larger fighter on fight night. He's going to be in a weight class that suit his chin and cardio better. And I mean, when you're talking about someone in McGregor who is 21-4, talking about his weaknesses, we're talking relatively speaking. Aside from the very early career loss to Joe Duffy, he's been submitted, but not by chumps. You know what I mean? But even so, Cerrone's always been a venomous offensive grappler earlier in his career to his own detriment. But even at this point, very opportunistic. He doesn't need a huge window, a bit like Nate Diaz in that way. And I think he's going to find something on McGregor. He's either going to start pulling ahead and ding him up, get him tired, and then get kind of a mercy kill tap on the ground. Or if it goes to the ground early on while they're still fresh, could totally see him like snatching something in a scramble. But yeah, I have Cerrone in this one as well by finish.
You want a crazy stat here real quick? Here's a crazy stat that I know, weird, right? For me, who the hell knows?
I never would have guessed you'd
totally
unexpected.
Cowboy did not earn a knockout victory until he became a UFC fighter. All of his finishes before he became the UFC fighter were by submission. And knocked out Charles Oliveira was his first knockout win. So everything else was a tap out. So yeah, that's.
It's notable that a lot of those submissions were set up by what probably would have been knockout blows in a lot of fighters.
Correct.
Which is where I was going. I mean, definitely in some cases of the mercy tap variety, because he in his WEC days completely presented like a Muay Thai specialist.
100%.
By the way, I mean, mostly he used his grappling because his takedown defense was so poor in those days. I'm remembering like Jamie Varner, effortlessly putting him on his back 900 times. Anyway, sorry.
So good. Let me be the lone voice of dissension here, because I actually see this fight for Conor McGregor off my first instinct. Now, that is assuming that we're going to get a McGregor similar to what we've seen him in top form. If he comes in with any sort of serious mental issues, or he comes in like smiling on the scale like he was eating too much steak ahead of the first Nate Diaz fight, and this is at 170, so I'm a little concerned about that, then we're going to have another conversation. But my first instinct tells me that he should win this fight. Cerrone being a notorious slow starter, Conor being a particularly fast starter. Then on top of that, Cerrone is so extremely hittable in those early moments. Conor is so extremely accurate. It just sounds like a recipe for disaster. Even if you give Cerrone the extra hydration with his chin at 170, even if his body is less vulnerable at 170, it just seems like something Conor would pick apart at if he's in top form. But Conor at top form, we haven't seen in quite some time. So any guess on what's going to happen there? So, And that's not to say that this is a fight that should even be booked in the first place due to the personal issues that he has outside the cage that
Great point.
a lot of people are very conveniently forgetting.
Yes.
So, I'd like to, as I tend to do on this show, I'd like to take a moment to address the Conor McGregor apologists out there who seem to be so adamant that you're like you as a media personality or someone who's concerned about the sport in any way, shape, or form is wrong for pointing out the problem with booking a guy who was under investigation for 2 sexual assaults. Sorry, your hero is being accused of some very terrible things, and that probably should be sorted out before he's put into these mega fights. Just my take as a rational human being who gives a shit about humanity. Sorry.
Even if you don't give a shit about humanity, from a strictly pragmatic level, like if you are someone out there who doesn't think violent rape is a bad thing, from a strictly practical level, like what's to say he's going to be a free person at the time of that fight? It just seems odd to bank this much on a fight with these things hanging in the air over him. And of course, that's me taking the absolute bottom shelf, bottom rung approach to this problem. The real problem is that somebody with, these accusations floating out there, and I mean, who knows if there's fire, but there is a lot of smoke right now. I come back to this over and over again, but people who have difficulty managing violence in their private lives should not be in the violence business.
Truth.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. All right, fellas. So let's move on from this topic because a topic that really should be bigger news, which has been kind of drowned out due to a lot of the Cowboy Tony Khabib drama. The UFC and USADA have announced revisions to their policy. So certain thresholds on substances will be raised and it will allow fighters to compete even if they've been flagged for trace amounts of substances in their system. And this also includes a supplement program where USADA has pre-approved a list of supplements that are essentially functioning as a get out of jail free card. Now
this shit is gonna look like those Mentos commercials from the 90s. Someone's gonna get busted and just pull out the little USADA packet, and everyone's gonna be like, "Hey!"
That's a great analogy.
Like it's not gonna matter how fucked up the situation is. You're gonna pull out the little pack of USADA Mentos, the USADA by UFC collection, and apparently you're gonna walk. Yeah. And funny as it sounds, I think this is generally a step in the right direction, even though it opens up this ridiculous conflict of interest.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I really want to touch on, the conflict of interest here, because I'm not quite sure. And granted, this news really did just break last week. I think the press release went out, I think last Thursday or Wednesday, something like that. So there are a lot of things that we don't understand about this yet, and this program clearly hasn't been fully implemented, and a lot of question marks there. But man, of course, the lights go out in the office just when I'm about to I got to wave around and. Whatever. That's just how it's gonna be. We do this every damn week. But anyway, so we have a lot of conflict of interest here because at what point is the UFC and USADA taking ownership of the actual supplements? Are they simply just putting their stamp of approval on pre-existing supplements, or are they literally sponsoring a line of supplements? In which case, how involved in the manufacturing are they? How involved in the, in the distribution are they? Who's responsible then if supplements get tainted? Like there is a lot that we just don't understand. And not to mention another potential chance for the UFC to rob fighters of sponsorship dollars if the fighters are mandated to take certain supplements. If they choose to supplement, then say Jon Jones would get nutrition or any other fighter you can think of that has outside supplement sponsorships. Do those go away? So what direction are we headed in? Ben, I know you're conflicted about this, but you feel like it's going somewhere in the right direction. James, or what's your thoughts on this overall situation here?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag as well, because on the one hand, I do think that there are mistakes. There are things that happen. Guys aren't cheating and they're getting busted. So obviously that's trying to, because they're talking also about, the levels. They're sort of looking at that a little bit closer. So I think in that sense it's good. But you're right. I mean, don't put it past the UFC. We've seen this with Reebok, where they're just like, hey, by the way, all your sponsors, we'll give you, 3 months or something, and then we're going to bring in Reebok, and you have to get rid of all those things. So I wouldn't put it past the UFC that there's somehow profiting from this. Do you know what I mean? Like with the supplements, and whether there's some handshake deals behind the closed doors and things like that. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. But again, I think if we can eliminate situations like we had with Yoel Romero, or where we have situations where people clearly aren't taking things, but they're stuff's getting flagged. I think what really pushed this was Nate Diaz, right? Like it finally happened to a fighter where it actually could have potentially really screwed things up, and they're just like, whoa, hold on a second. I mean, we didn't mean that. Here, Nowitzki, I was at the the media scrum when he did it, and he's like, well, actually it turns out, I don't even know what he said, but it's just like, you can just tell that like it finally happened to someone that was meaningful. Sean O'Malley, they do not give a crap about. I mean, I don't know his entire situation, but it just seems like he's the real victim in this thing. And guys like Tom Lawler and other fighters who things have happened to them, they don't care, but when it's someone notable, they try and spin it whatever way they can. So I mean, again, mixed bag is sort of the best way I put it. It's this is like the Chex Mex of UFC drug testing.
The trail mix of fuckery.
Trail mix. There you go.
So Jay, anything you want to share about what you feel this USADA UFC supplement, whatever's going on? I wish I knew how to describe it properly.
Yeah, the whole mess. Well, if we're going to go with the trail mix, I am going full raisin on this one. Nobody really wants to deal with it. I'm feeling very cynical for a lot of the specific bullet point reasons that you guys have mentioned. I'm cynical because it feels like the kind of thing whipped up to preserve big fights. Diaz Masvidal, Jones, Gustafsson, other future situations where, he's 0.000003, which means he's still above zero, but it's the threshold and all the different made up words they want to try and throw at us to convince us that it's scientifically justified. We, me, myself included, sometimes forget that USADA was hired by the UFC and is paid by the UFC. Now, it's very simple. Obviously, we know this, but they try and have a division for companies. But for instance, Jeff Nowitzki, as you mentioned, is the VP of Athletic Health and Performance for the UFC. He's a UFC employee, and he's acting, and he's the spokesperson for USADA, sort of, and he's the answer guy for USADA, sort of, except for, I don't have all the scientific answers, so you're actually going to have to get your answers from somebody else, even though Dana said that you can divert all questions to Jeff Nowitzki. There are too many questions and not enough answers. And yes, it's still early. It's still very early in the process, and we need to learn more information. There are ways for this to go wrong. Approving 5 organizations to have legitimate supplements. And if you take their supplements, and if something goes wrong, you're cleared of wrongdoing because you took a check supplement that, it wasn't your fault, and so you're cleared automatically. Opens the door for a lot of malfeasance, potentially. In addition, there's the other way around. It feels almost like a high-level marketing or sponsorship situation, because fighters will have to be paying the UFC and the UFC PI, which is part of the UFC, for these sponsorships. So UFC pays them for their fights, and they're going to be paying back to the UFC to buy these approved supplements, whatever that means. I see a lot of harm potential to the supplement industry, like you guys have said. I see Reebok written all over this. I see Muscle Farm, and I see all those other Gat Nutrition and everything like that going, oh boy, now we have to either buy our way, whatever buy means, onto an approved list, because they have very specific guidelines of the organizations that are automatically okay, or they're out because they can't compete, and now they assume the risk of the product. So I just think, absent any new information that answers these questions, I think this could be a real problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, I think we've earned the right to be skeptical in this situation. James, I know we were there for UFC 232 and a very similar scrum with Jeff Nowitzki. Right. And of course, you got to be on the ground for 244 and witness another Jeff Novitzky scrum in a very similar circumstance. There are a lot of things. I mean, we saw the thresholds even changed kind of quietly. Like, this is information that we probably would not have heard if it weren't for Nate Diaz jumping the gun and hopping on Twitter when he was told to be quiet.
Yeah. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in those meetings with Dana and Jeff Novitzky. That's reality TV at its best.
Shout out to Nate Diaz for changing the game once again.
That's exactly.
Definite shout out to Nate Diaz. I mean, a lot of fighters have tried to play chicken with the UFC, and it turns out that they grossly overestimated their own clout. I mean, even their ultimate superstar, Conor McGregor, tried to play that game with him over UFC 200, and they called his bluff. They pulled him from the bill, and they did not put him back on, even after he started, apologizing. Nate Diaz, he dared them to do something, and he was vindicated in the end. Or I don't know if he was completely vindicated, but
he told them he was vindicated.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, Dana's like, I always knew. Like Nate was not.
You knew because he told you. All right. So we're gonna move on to the best titled segment in all of media history, and that is "I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons." This is where we get to share things that surprise us the most from the news over the weekend or over the past week. I mean, there wasn't a big fight, but a lot of things did happen. So we'll start with our guest, James. Can you share with us your "I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons" moment of the past week?
I'll tell you one thing. This Conor McGregor announcement, this is something that that appeared that it wasn't going to happen, it wasn't going to take place, and then it ends up coming together here, and it just goes to show, like, if the UFC wants to make something happen, they will put it together here. Because I'll be honest, I mean, there were rumors out there that they were switching this to a fight night, and the website wasn't updated. People were trying to figure out clues and everything, and all this stuff. And here it is. It gets booked, and it's a Thanksgiving miracle, right? Like, it ended up coming together. But I think it just goes to show that if the UFC wants to make something happen, they'll make it happen. The same thing with Darren Till at UFC 244, like making it like, we're gonna get you here. It doesn't matter what your issues are. We're gonna figure it out. So when it comes to what's best for business, the UFC goes out of their way to try and make it happen. And I think, this is something where, again, it didn't look like it was going to happen. I think the UFC, once again, had to do what's best for business, put it together. So to me, I was not surprised at the end of the day, because they need Conor, especially with having 3 title fights in 245. They need some star power to really kick things off in 2020. And they're doing that with this fight.
All right. Well said, James. Ben, please share with us your "I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons" moment of the past 7 days.
Well, on the tail end of not just 1, but 2 weeks without a whole lot of super high level MMA, I did turn to the sweet science for my fix of people getting their ass kicked, and I was treated to Deontay Wilder. Funny thing about boxing is it is such a venerable sport. It's kind of like baseball in a way, in that it's been around since, in more or less its current form, since the late 19th century, but it doesn't even have baseball's like obsessive statistics. All it has is storytelling, and because of that, it's very tempting either to oversell what's happening right now in boxing or refuse to credit anything that's happening right now in boxing. Like, anyone who calls anything something all time in boxing, you always have to take it with a grain of salt. But Deontay Wilder is doing things that are strange and bizarre and difficult to fathom when you see them happen. And the things he does fulfill what seem to be almost too easy of a cliche. Like when he says, he has to be perfect for 12 rounds. I only have to be perfect for 2 seconds. That sounds like something every puncher fighting a boxer has said in the history of boxing. And there haven't been many guys who make it look true like Deontay Wilder does. I mean, this may be a bit reductive, but what he is doing, go ahead and wave your arms. And wow. And turn the lights back on with the power of his mind. That's outstanding. You borrowed the rock from what's his name?
I was going to say I borrowed crystals from Jose Young's.
Oh, does Jose got crystals?
Yeah, he's all in the crystals, man.
Oh man.
Oh wow.
It's positive energy.
I was
all
talking
that
about
stuff,
Jared Cannonier.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
He borrowed
Yeah,
Jared
he's got
Cannonier's like
crystals too.
yeah,
Yeah,
like his kryptonite or whatever he's got. No, it sounds reductive to say this, but you know, when you're watching what Wilder does, it almost doesn't feel like boxing so much as hunting. He's just hiding out in the blind, like waiting for the duck to you know, and then just crack.
Punch it.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And as flawed as he is, it makes his fights appointment viewing because it is literally never over until it's over. You know, he has proven that he can get outboxed and take more damage from a fighter over the, you know, all of a fight except for X number of seconds and just zap him with something that changes the whole momentum of the fight, which is why I will watch him fight Tyson Fury again, even though I'm pretty sure how it's going to look. I'm not absolutely sure because you can't be with Deontay Wilder.
Absolutely. I think one thing, too, that we need to remember with Deontay Wilder, there's only one person that he really couldn't handle, and that's Charlie Z. Jay, please share with me your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment
I
of
don't
the
know
week.
if I can now. I don't know. 400 no. I can't step at that. So a matchup announcement today had me actually respond by taking off my glasses and going like this. It was a physical reaction that I couldn't believe that this was actually happening. Corey Anderson is going to headline UFC Rio Rancho in New Mexico against Jan Blachowicz. Now, 99% of the people paying attention or not paying attention don't realize this is a rematch of a fight that happened in 2015, and it was not a competitive fight. It was not. It was not a memorable fight. I'll say that. I can't place it in my memory. It wasn't of any significance. I knew what event it took place on, but otherwise, there's not much more to it. No, Corey Anderson got multiple 10-8s, 130-25s on a couple scorecards, and handled Jan Blachowicz, which was 2015. Now, they're number 4 and number 5, number 3 and number 4, but they're top 5 guys in the light heavyweight division. So we understand the need for them to try and make a top contender title eliminator fight. But this fight doesn't make much sense to me. Jan has this way of getting rematches that he doesn't really deserve several years later, and I don't know. I don't feel good about it. Like when he fought Jimmy Manuwa the first time years back, it was actually right around the same time he fought Corey Anderson. I think the fights were back to back. It wasn't a special fight. Manuwa Blachowicz, not a fun fight. They ran it back years later. Blachowicz put on a show, and it was a great fight. But the rematch didn't make sense. It was a rematch nobody wanted to see, and the rubber match everybody wants to see. I'm very surprised the UFC made this fight. And I feel like Anderson is going to be confident, maybe overconfident, so it has the makings of a trap fight, kind of like Anderson, Johnny Walker on the other way around. But what else does he have to do? What else does Corey Anderson have to do to get a title shot around here? It's light heavyweight. How many guys have 4-fight win streaks, like in the top of the division, other than Jon Jones? Yeah, I don't understand. So I don't get it. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons.
Well, I'll share my I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment, and this is also, news that kind of made me scratch my head and have a physical reaction to when Duke Roufus went on record with the fact that the UFC turned down a Cowboy Cerrone versus Anthony Pettis rematch. Wasn't too surprised when it's announced that Cowboy it will indeed fight Conor McGregor. Make perfect sense, but there was a little nugget in there where he talked about Dan Hardy wanting to fight Anthony Pettis in a comeback fight. Dan Hardy has not fought for 7 years, I believe it is. And to come back against someone like Anthony Pettis, who since Dan Hardy was last seen has won the lightweight title, has done some spectacular things in the cage, briefly became one of the biggest stars in the sport, and had at least one shocking win at welterweight. Seems like a tough one for Dan Hardy to want to come back to. And I spoke with Dan Hardy. When was the last time I talked to him? Probably UFC 239, I think it was. And he said like there was a big name that he really wanted for a comeback fight, while I assumed it was someone along the lines of Diego Sanchez, perhaps a BJ Penn. It was actually Anthony Pettis, and wow, call me Mr. Falcons. I'm very surprised right now.
And that's may not even be the craziest thing that Duke Roufus said this week.
Oh man!
I mean, it was this week that he said that if Ben Askren had signed with the UFC right out of Bellator, he would have been a champ, right?
I think that was a recent thing too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was recent also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not that mad at that. I mean, he's his coach, so it's it's a certain level of wishful thinking, and he certainly I think would have been better off had he gone to the UFC sooner. But I digress. Because
I digressed you. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. You're just delaying the inevitable. The inevitable is the moment where I flex my authority. The inevitable is you submit to the clock, sir, and that clock comes to you exclusively on the speed bag. Yes, you have 30 seconds until actually no, wait. Oh, scratch that. Whoa. You have 10 seconds to answer these questions here. Let me make sure that I pulled up the wrong setting on my clock at first. We're going to change that real quick for you guys. You have 10 seconds each to answer these questions. So, Ben, since you want to delay the inevitable is coming for you. I am Thanos. Tito Ortiz, again, thinks he has a good chance to beat Jon Jones. What do you think? You have 10 seconds. Let's rock.
I think he has a worse chance than Dominic Reyes, a better chance than Chuck Liddell. But I will have to wait to render final judgment until I see him in action this weekend.
All right.
Oh yeah.
All right. Oh, that is this weekend. All right.
I'm gonna be there, dude. Press row.
Oh man.
Nice.
All right, James. Well, it is your turn to tell me what you think of Tito Ortiz's chances against Jon Jones. You have 10 seconds. Let's do it.
I'm going to take this a little bit differently. I think that Tito is doing a great job of ruining his legacy of being one of the greatest fighters to get the UFC on the map by saying stuff like this. That's what I think. I think Tito is not doing himself any favors.
I love
it. Man. Beautiful. James, you are a model citizen. Jay, it's up to you now to answer this question. 10 seconds. What chance do you give Tito Ortiz at actually beating Jon Jones?
Is he serious? Like, is this real life? What planet is he living on? Didn't he already get in trouble for this before? Yeah, I thought so. Now, I want to break the rules for a second and give a shout out to somebody on Twitter. Borochinha Depot has frequently been posting some of the greatest Tito Ortiz moments and quotes and comments out there, and this has to rank right among the best of them.
You forget how much there is.
Oh, it's
just a rich library.
It's a gold mine.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful treasure of all sorts of fun little nuggets and sound bites. All right, but Jay, while you did bring up a very good point, you had a gross violation of the clock.
Sure did.
And you disrespected my authority. Therefore, you will go first on this question. And you have 10 seconds to answer this. After his loss to Jan Blachowicz, Jacare Souza now thinks his best course of action is to go back to middleweight. Do you agree? You have 10 seconds.
Look, there's no shame in losing to a top 5 guy. I think he should take another fight at light heavyweight before getting a little hasty. And move back down at his age, not a good idea.
Well said. Well said. So, Ben, your turn.
Gotcha.
Is Jacare going back to middleweight a good idea?
No. If you're locked into being a number 6 through 10 guy for the next 2 years or so, might as well do it at a weight class where you can eat.
All right. Perfect. Okay. All right, James. Now tell me, do you think Jacare moving back to middleweight is the right move?
Unless he's fighting Anderson Silva, that's the only way this would be a good move. It's a bad move, in my opinion. Very, very, very bad. And I also think that Jared Cantonier has 3 straight wins. He's not even getting a title shot by the looks of it. Why do you think Jacare would have any more luck?
Right. Very nice. With the buzzer beater. Now, the third question. Now, I'll start with you on this one, James. Based on his performance at Polaris, do you think Luke Rockhold has a future in submission grappling? And go.
No, stick to modeling. That's what's making your money right now. I don't care. I think Rockhold's done in combat sports.
All right. Okay, Jay, your turn. Do you think Luke Rockhold is the future of submission grappling?
Let's be honest, that wasn't a grappling match. It was 13 minutes of tie-ups, a little bit of mount, and when the most interesting thing is a cut, it's not looking good. No. No.
I will allow the extra nose. Now, Ben, you have 10 seconds to answer whether Luke Rockhold actually has a future in submission grappling.
Yeah, he might have a future if he wants it, but we didn't learn much from this match. He survived for 15 minutes, and it was a dreadful match. You know, either put on the gi or put on the chinos.
Sneaky.
All right. So now this is the time where I get to do what I do. I will give myself 30 seconds, and I will answer all 3 questions. The clock will start after reading the first question. Tito Ortiz again thinks he can beat Jon Jones. What do you think? And the clock starts now. It's ridiculous. I think his skull is still cracked from that time he said it after the Forrest fight. All right. Second question. Jan Blachowicz loss. A loss of Jan Blachowicz does not mean Jacare needs to go to middleweight. Stay at 205. You're older. The weight cut is harder. And there is a clearer, shorter path to the belt. And based on the Polaris performance, I can't really say because I didn't watch it. But Luke Rockhold, it's time to just pose in front of the camera, man. Stop taking a lick for money. You're getting a lot more money to look good. Oh, my goodness. Woo. Perfect 30 seconds. Once again, I have proven I am the man. Now, it is time to discuss the long-awaited return of UFC action. We spent, 2 weeks away from the Octagon? So now the UFC is back in my hometown of Washington, D.C. I would have used this as an excuse to go home and visit family while getting a little work in at an event, but wife is about to pop any moment, so I can't leave town. So anyway, the headliner is Alistair Overeem, who's fighting Rozenstruik, and that fight just sounds pretty fantastic. So James, I'm going to start with you. What fight stands out the most to you on this card? What's a sleeper for fight of the night in your opinion?
Fight that stands out to me the most, or something I'm really interested in, Aspen Ladd and Yana Kunitsukaya. I think Aspen Ladd is quite the talent, but she had a really bad showing in her last fight, getting finished very quickly by Duran Durandamy. She says her weight cuts are under control. We'll see in this fight. It's a huge opportunity for her because clearly the UFC was interested in her sort of being the next big thing. That's why she got to headline that card. We'll see if she can bounce back here. Still very young. I think she has a good opportunity here to do that, fighting someone in Yana who actually fought her teammate Marion Renault. So that should be interesting. As far as like a sleeper fight on this card, I think Rob Font and Ricky Simone really is an awesome fight in the bantamweight division. You got Simone coming off that really brutal loss to Uriah Faber, and you've got Rob Font, who just hasn't fought in a long time. He just beat up a flyweight in Sergio Pettis last year. So is the layoff going to affect Font? We'll see. I always expect Rob Font to make a bold statement, so I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to how Ricky Simone is going to look after the surprise knockout loss to Uriah Faber. Just wonder how he bounces back from that one. So very good picks on that one, James. Ben, I know you and Jay both do extraordinarily deep dives on every card. But give me a sleeper pick for fight of the night and something that stands out to you on this card.
I mean, I do pretty deep dives, but this is a pretty shallow pool. If I dove too deep, I'd hit my head on the concrete and be getting taken out on a stretcher. I mean, there are some actively bad matchups on this card, like Struve versus Rothwell is. Font versus Simone is going to answer a lot of questions about one or both fighters. That's what I'm here for. Yadong versus Stamen is another great one for a lot of the same reasons. They were wise to put these two fights back to back on the main card. They're likely to get the crowd hyped.
It's quite a cockfight.
I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to take the high road. I'm surprised that Jairzinho Rozenstruik is even money right now in the headliner. Overeem is a better fighter everywhere except for one glaring place. And if watching Deontay Wilder fight is like hunting, then watching Alistair Overeem fight is like watching Jenga. You're just waiting for that moment when all the shit goes sideways.
fantastic. I don't know how,
beautiful.
but Jay, you have the misfortune of having to top what Ben just said. So tell me, what's a potential fight of the night for you on this card?
Other than Font Simone, for all the obvious reasons, you know, sometimes when aging action fighters match up, it works out for us. Sometimes they let it all go, and it's ridiculous. Matt Brown, Diego Sanchez is an example that was sticking in my head forever as two guys who probably should be looking towards ending their careers, and go out there and Matt Brown does that thing he does. So I feel like this is the showcase that Thiago Alves can say, I'm still here, I can still hang, or this is where Tim Means finishes the job that Carlos Condit started and puts his nose further back into his head, because holy smokes, this could be violent. If it's up in the clinch, Tim Means is going to work him. You know all of his Muay Thai stylings. The elbows are going to fly. There's going to be blood. It's going to be messy. Is it going to be fun or grueling? I don't know, but I'm hoping for the fun part. I'm hoping for it to be a one last hoorah kind of fight. And I gotta say, Duffy and the main event, yeah, that's kind of the exact same way I'm looking at it. That one glaring weakness that he has, this thing right here that has taken a couple hits over the years against the power striker.
You know what? I'm definitely gonna go ahead and give a thumbs up to everyone mentioning Font versus Simone. That fight just, it is what it is. It just sounds fantastic. I'm also going to second you, Jay, about Alves and Means. It's one of those fights where we really shouldn't care about it. It has no divisional relevance. It has it might even promise to show very sloppy action, but damn it, it's going to be fun. It just sounds like a great time. And Alves is a guy who we probably should be talking about. If conventional wisdom were playing out here, we'd be talking about him just being totally washed, someone who needs to hang it up, and how his best days are so far behind him. But he's looked pretty damn good as of late. He's been in some very good fights. He's had a couple of quality wins recently. And Tim Means, despite his last fight getting knocked out violently by Nico Price, he was piecing up Nico Price until that knockout blow. So I think this fight serves a lot of goodness for people who just love to see blood being spilled all over the octagon. Now, I'm really curious about Matt Wiman versus Joe Solecki on the prelims, because we didn't really learn a whole lot about Matt Wiman's return to the UFC when he's fighting Luis Pena. I mean, that was a fight that really had no business being put together, and Pena dominated him as he should have. Now, Solecki is a guy who looked very good on the Contender Series, done very well for himself on the regional circuit, and he's making his UFC debut. So maybe this is a more appropriate test for a veteran who is kind of trying to return to form in Matt Wiman. So I think we'll learn a lot more about Wyman's second run than we learned in his comeback fight against Pena. So, fellas, let's see. I believe we are now going to move on to some news from KSW. So Mamed Khalidov is back in the promotion after a short retirement. He took a catchweight fight. He's taking a catchweight fight against the middleweight champ Scott Askham. Now, do you think other promotions should be giving legends these catchweight fights or moneyweight fights, as King Mo used to affectionately call them? Open forum to the panel on that one.
I'd say yes. I think if these guys can fight it, closer to their natural weight, I'm all for it. You're going to get a better fight that way. And if they're big enough names, I don't think it matters. And when it comes to this type of stuff, and again, like you could have done Diaz and Masvidal to a certain degree at 165 or whatever weight class. So it doesn't really matter. I'm in favor of it. Bellator does it all the time. People hate it. I don't mind it. If you're going to fight closer to your weight, I'm all for it.
All right, agreeing with that. What?
Oh, I was just going to jump in to say I'm all for it as well. And this isn't even on the level of a lot of Bellator, kind of senior circuit type fights. I thought Khalidov still had things left to offer when he decided to step away. It was kind of unexpected, although I did believe him when he said it, because he's always been a guy who had other revenue streams. But I'm happy to see him back. He is 39, but he's not a fighter who has ever depended on fast twitch muscle and next level athleticism to run his game. He's depended primarily on KSW matchmaking to run his game. But you know, like I spent most of the 2010s not knowing whether he was the second best or 15th best middleweight in the world. I still enjoy watching him fight, so I'm all for this. And the Ask Him fight is appropriate test for both guys. You know, I will go out of my way to watch this one.
I'm certainly interested in this fight, and I like the idea of these catchweight fights happening more often. Like, I'm thinking back to, for instance, Rich Franklin in the last couple of years of his time in the UFC, and he had quite a few catchweight fights. Ended up being pretty damn good.
UFC's best 195-pound fighter,
he's
probably.
a Franklin weight champion of the world. Absolutely.
Exactly. I like it. You know, why once you get, I mean, we were just talking about Jacare going back to middleweight, and all of us in agreement that wasn't the best idea. So why not offer him a 195-pound fight if he's healthier there? Like, it doesn't, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter unless someone is chasing a belt particularly, doesn't really matter. And even then, doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's my take. Jay, what say you?
Yeah. Well, I'm generally in for it for many of the reasons specified earlier. However, if it bumps into title reigns or title aspirations, it starts to get a little murky. I mean, this is KSW. It's an entertainment. It's a sport second, entertainment first. You got to put on a show. I mean, it's no surprise each of the last 3 fights for Khalidov before he retired were catchweight fights, champion versus champion, where he, as the middleweight champion, went down to sub-middleweight in the middle of middleweight and welterweight to take on Boris Lankowski.
No, right. Yeah. No.
And that was interesting. And they decided, no, let's get weird. I won that fight. Let's get weird and go up to right below light heavyweight and fight the light heavyweight champion, Thomas Narkun. Now, Narkun tapped him, and that was very surprising. But those were fun, man. Those were, you know, champion versus champion, and they held up the division, but it was kind of okay because it was fun. You know, it was how many times you get to see champions fighting other champions at the same time while they're both champions and neither has something at risk. It was a fun show. And that doesn't contrast what I said earlier, because sometimes it is okay to have a little fun. And a guy who's 39 now, had a retirement for about, maybe a year, decided, no, I'm not done yet, and wanted to keep it rolling. So fighting Scott Askham is a real test to see if he's still in the game without screwing up any title reigns in the long run. So yeah, I'm down with those kind of legend fights. Vanderlei Silva, Rich Franklin, that the fights. Okay, thanks for your service. Here's a fight against another guy who we're thanking for their service at a weight class that's good for them. I dig it.
Definitely good stuff coming out of KSW. So we're going to wrap things up with another segment that I particularly love, and that's Buried Treasure. And that's where we get to share a story that, for whatever reason, has been flying under the radar, just kind of didn't get noticed. And considering that we were all stuffing our faces with macaroni and cheese and ham because turkey sucks, and we were reveling about the Conor McGregor and Cowboy announcement, quite a few things kind of slipped under the radar. So I will start with you, Ben. Tell me what your buried treasure is for this week.
Well, I mean, when you've watched as much college football as I have over the last 5 days, like, this entire sport is buried treasure. But again, you know, looking at news stories that flew a little bit under the radar on the tail end of a couple of weeks where, you know, there wasn't a big UFC card. Something that's actually happening not within the MMA industry, media industry, but affecting the MMA media industry, is that the state of California has enacted a law that's going to become active shortly, affecting freelance writers. Basically, it's a reaction to the, you know, blog/news site economy, which is, you know, coming to dominate a lot of media avenues, particularly online. And it is putting a hard cap on the number of written pieces an individual author can publish for a particular outlet while still being considered a freelancer. And it is a well-meaning, I'm sure well-meaning measure by California looking to protect the labor that runs what are essentially content farms. You know, a lot of sites that you see out there are basically content farms. They are harvesting clicks and advertising revenue on the backs of people that, I mean, are sometimes paid $50 a piece, $20 a piece, $10 a piece to write about not just sports, but music, books, whatever. But the actual effect of this law is that a lot of these sites are simply going to ditch their California contributors and harvest that content from somewhere else, another state, another country. Since California is a huge state with a huge population, by some estimates, if you sawed California off from the rest of the United States, it would by itself be the 6th largest economy in the world. It is affecting it's going to affect online media in general. It is affecting the MMA media in particular, and it is certainly affecting Sherdog as a site that is run by a parent company based in California. And so watch out, you know, for some faces that you're used to seeing and some names that you're used to seeing on bylines, maybe to change or move or not be there anymore. And it's affecting a lot of people that I know and value as colleagues. I value their contributions. I consider them friends. And it really sucks. And this may sound like aimless whining to somebody out there who takes in this sport as a fan and says, well, you're lucky that you get paid anything to do this. You get to watch a great sport and just, you know, write shit about it. But being a member of the MMA media, if you take your job seriously at all or care about the quality of the product you put forth, it's hard work. You have to watch a lot of fights, not all of which are great, and put a lot of thought into it and research in order to be able to put forth valid opinions that are, you know, that are backed by facts or that you can at least articulate. So a lot of people that were already doing this more or less as a labor of love, which they justified to their significant others because it did bring in some sort of paycheck, are about to have even that small carpet pulled out from under their ass. So it does suck, and I certainly hope it changes before it has the chance to do too much damage to the people and the media space and the sport that I love.
All right. Yeah, I don't think I could have said that any better. Yeah,
well,
I've
not for free anyway.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this law. It's definitely affected a couple of people I know, for sure. I looked.
Where are you again,
this morning? Yeah, I am in California. I'm in the Los Angeles area, and yes, I looked in the mirror. I've seen a couple of people that this has affected. So, it is what it is. And you know, the thing is, it's funny too, man, because I particularly care about the work that I do. Despite it not being the most monetarily profitable thing, it's not the thing that's putting a whole lot of food on the table. But damn, I love it. Like I love it, and I take it very seriously. And I think anybody who does take it seriously, anybody who does sincerely give a shit about their name being on a byline and they care about the content that's there, you are going to put the work in it to where you deserve to get paid for it. Like this is not just because, hey, I'm a fan and I just typed something out real quick. Like, no, it takes effort. It takes a certain level of skill. It takes honing your craft. It takes a lot of things that typically people get paid for. Yeah. Did go to school for some of this shit too, so that's what's up. You know, so all right, James, can you share with me your buried treasure for the week?
Yeah, I don't know how I follow that up. I mean, that was crazy. I can't. Mine's going to sound completely, nothing compared to this. But I think something that did kind of fly under the radar last week was Paige VanZant having a fight booked against Amanda Ribas. This is just such a weird fight. First off, this is Paige's last fight on her UFC contract, and it by the looks of this matchup, at least from my perspective, is they're not looking to re-sign Paige VanZant. I think those comments that she made about, I make more on Instagram. They're like, you know what, you go try that out in Bellator. We don't care. So that's what this looks like to me. And what's so surprising about this is why they just didn't do the fight with Macy Barber. I mean, they had this built-in storyline. If you're on Team Macy, which it seems like the UFC is, why not give Macy that fight instead? I realize, Macy wants to be the youngest champ and all that stuff, but there was so much build up to this fight. Paige hates her. I mean, she did the whole, call out and didn't put Macy in the line there. It's so difficult to create storylines that people are going to get interested in, and they had one right on their doorstep. And I figured when Macy got the matchup with Roxanne Modafferi that they were going to give Paige a layup and they wanted to resign her. No, it's not the case. Amanda Ribas is not a layup. She just beat Mackenzie Dern. This is such a confusing fight, and I think it's very significant because, Paige was someone they put a lot of eggs in their basket with. They got her on Dancing with the Stars. From a marketing perspective, she is someone that is very polarizing. People feel she got opportunities she didn't deserve. People feel like, there's people that do want to watch her fight, and you should see her fans. I see all sides of it. So to me, this was kind of underrated just because, again, this could be Paige VanZant's last fight, and it looks like the UFC does not care. That's my perspective.
I can't disagree with that. Yeah, this definitely feels like the UFC just setting someone up to go out on a loss and lower their marketing power. So good call on that one, James. Jay, what is your buried treasure this week?
Well, first of all, I want to give a quick follow-up to Mr. Duffy's buried lead because it's an important development. Earlier in November, California Trucking Association did file a federal suit to challenge the law in California, saying that its truckers, which are involved in interstate commerce and their livelihoods are based on being contractors and not tied to one company, is significantly hampered. And the Trucking Association, the truckers, not quite union because they're independent contractors, but organization of them has enough of a lobby that they could make a difference. It's obviously still going to court. We don't know any developments from it other than steps have been taken to hopefully challenge this law in the courts, which is the place where it can be struck down, given an injunction, which means it doesn't go into effect on January 1st like it's planning to. So it's just a flicker of hope in a dark time for California workers. So I hope that goes through. My brief buried lead about MMA, buried treasure, apology. My buried treasure in MMA is about ranked featherweight contender Cindy Dandois. I'm struggling here. She broke up with her boyfriend, who is also a professional fighter, and he didn't take kindly to it. He showed up at her place, and he struck her repeatedly, attacked her with his keys, broke her nose, cut her face up pretty badly. She's gonna have scars from it, and that's really a big unfortunate situation, and it's almost compounded, I think is the right word for it. That she filed a complaint because she wants to have him pay for the medical expenses, of course, but she isn't going to press charges or have anybody seek action against him criminally. So he presumably will be free to do this to somebody else in the future who isn't a professional fighter. And that concerns me that her own attitude was, I don't want to send him to prison. I just want to have this taken care of, and we'll move on and we'll move forward. I don't want to destroy his life, essentially. And that left me with a funny feeling, because what happens the next time? So let's not get too dark or anything.
Yeah. On the potentially brighter side, let's hope that there are people at his gym, wherever he trains, that won't take too kindly to this, and he'll be taught a lesson in sparring. Let's just let's go a little bit harder when the time comes, gentlemen. All right, so my buried treasure this week is kind of an interesting one, right? Kind of multifaceted, and that is the retirement of Gerald Harris. It kind of caught us off guard. Gerald Harris has kind of made the rounds through different promotions and has made decent living for himself in this independent circuit post his UFC career. He called it quits after taking a single blow in the third round of his last fight, where he said he's only been hit like clean about 5 times his whole career, and he prides himself on defense. He took that hit and said, yeah, I don't want to be a pro fighter anymore. He decided to change up the whole game, and hey, that's what's up, man. getting hit is not for everybody, and it's good to see a fighter decide to hang it up as he feels his physical skills declining, and instead of just hanging around and seeing that really ugly, inevitable end that every pro fighter seems to come across when they stick around too long. So congrats to Gerald Harris on the career. Congrats on making a smart move, retiring when you just realize you don't have it anymore. So that's what's up, man. I wish it happened more often in the sport. As much as I love to see these men and women compete, I'd rather see them be healthy when it's all over with. So shout out to Gerald Harris for that one. All right, so that is going to do it for this edition of Unleashed. Definitely want to thank James. Appreciate you coming on the show. And can you share with everyone where they can find you and your work? But I'm sure you're such a big star these days. I'm sure they all know.
They might not know, but I appreciate, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. This was a lot of fun. Love chatting some fights with you guys. Please keep me in mind for future episodes because this was, like I said, it was a blast. Easiest way to find all my work, Twitter, at Lynch on Sports. That's Lynch, like Marshawn Lynch, kind of same last name there, former NFLer. And also subscribe to The Score's YouTube channel. That's where I work. I'm the senior editor over there. YouTube.com/TheScoreMMA. We're trying to give you guys something a little bit different that you won't see on the other sites when it comes to video content. So subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And thanks again, guys. It was awesome getting to chat with you.
Appreciate you coming on, and shout out to Nick Baldwin too, man, scoring that gig with you, man. You two are this dynamic duo, man. I like it. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with together. All right,
we appreciate that. I speak for him, so there you go.
Oh yeah, Nick's the homie. Nick is definitely the homie.
He's awesome, yeah.
All right, Jay, let the good folks know where they can find you and your work, please.
You should be able to find me right down here on Twitter at jpetry, JAYPETTRY. Find me at SureDog.com. If you drop in the features section, I'm right there on this list with a couple of fellow gentlemen along with me on this panel. I write everything in the sport pretty much there is, betting odds, pre-fight, post-fight analysis. I'm going to be covering the play-by-play for DC and all the upcoming UFC cards going forward. Anything else? No, I'm pretty much everywhere you need me to be in the sport.
All right, that's what's up. All right, Ben, can you share with the kind folks looking at the Walkout Network where they can find you and their work?
I'm Ben Duffy. I'm a senior editor at SureDog.com. You can find me on Twitter at Benjamin Duffy. I mean, you can find me on Instagram at Benjamin Duffy if you want to see pictures of food. But and you can find my work on SureDog. In particular, I will be down in the beautiful Rio Grande Valley covering Combate Americas, Tito versus Del Rio this coming weekend, within a stone's throw of the non-existent border wall and within an easy drive of some very much existing amazing Tex-Mex food. And I can't wait. Like many people at SureDog, I regard Combate Americas both as a really exciting upcoming fight promotion and a fount of some ridiculousness. So I can't wait to take in an event live in all of its glory. So look out for probably some live tweeting from there, as well as one of my fabled, infamous minute by minute.
Oh yeah,
nice.
That's goddamn. I can't wait for that.
That's gonna be fun.
And maybe a selfie with Campbell if I can pull him.
Sold.
You can pull the glass of whiskey out of his hand. All right, so actually just have a glass of whiskey with him.
If I pull the glass of whiskey out of his hand, it's not going back.
All right, so of course I'm Ant Walker. This is the Walkout Network. So you already know where you can find me. My Twitter handle at Ant Walker MMA, probably displayed under here by the time you guys get to see this. Where you can find some of my other work. You can find some of my old work on SureDog.com. Check out that features tab, and my name is there. Check it out before it gets taken away. It's fantastic.
It's not going anywhere until you tell us that you've been hired on somewhere else.
Oh. Yeah. All right, look at the solidarity right there. That's what's up. So you can check that features tab, check out some of my old work. a hired gun needs to get hired. That's what's up. So now that's going to wrap things up. So you know what you got to do. For James, for Jay, for Ben, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share it, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. But in the meantime, stay beautiful, stay positive, and most of all, stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.